Perfect. It's being recorded. Yay. It's Miss Hanley here. Guess what? You thought the kidney dissection was amazing. Wait till we do the heart dissection. I know you're super excited because I'm super excited. Yay. Heart dissection it is. We've been learning all about the parts of the heart to our homework and doing a coloring worksheet and all kinds of cool stuff like that. So let's actually do the dissection. So you'll be writing a lab report based on what I do today. So make sure you take some notes as I go along so that you're ready to go. I'm going to go through the materials first, what you're going to be using for, how you have your objective, notes, materials. Materials first, obviously gloves. Gloves are super important. So gloves are your first materials. A lab coat would be my second material. I also have something called a scalpel, which I know you guys have used before or seen before at least. It's a sharp object that's going to cut into the heart for me, okay? Scalpel. At school, you would probably use this poker. I am not going to use the poker today just to kind of, save time. But the poker, you would kind of, you do exactly what it's called. You poke around with it to look around the heart to try to find things. I'm going to use my finger to poke around this part today. So there you go. All right, I also use scissors. The hearts come in a little pack that you have to cut open. I did that already, so it's saving some time for us as well. So I've already cut it open. And of course, I have my heart. Yes, heart. This is a sheep heart, by the way. In case you're wondering, it's a sheep heart. Much bigger than one that would be inside my body. I mean, it's almost as big as my head. So this is a big heart. You can see lots of parts very easily. So when we dissect, you're going to be like, wow, that's so cool. The last thing I have, you can't really see, I'm going to pull up here, is my dissecting tray. Okay, so dissecting tray has all my tools in it and my heart ready to go. And when I'm ready to actually cut into the heart, I will move my computer down so you can see what I'm doing. Alrighty then, let's get to it. First, let's talk about the objective of the lab today. Objective, obviously, we're going to do something with a heart. This is a sheep heart, so add that in your objective. Our objective of our lab today would be something like this: to dissect and observe a sheep heart to learn all of its anatomical parts and positions, like we did in our cardiology unit. Very, very vague. In your own words, you do what you do, okay? All right, so that's it. Notes, the only notes I would say would be like, let's see, notes would be, make sure you're wearing your gloves and lab coat so you don't get the stuff all over you, okay? Material I gave you, procedure is going to be, I have printed out this lovely little lab sheet. Just like you normally get at school, you'll have this posted to Schoology, so you'll know exactly what you're supposed to do, how to follow it. I have the parts that I'm looking for highlighted so that I don't forget when I'm making the video, but you can go through and it's actually all capitalized, so when you open this up in Schoology, you can see that it has the materials and it gives the procedure pretty well. So when you're writing your procedure in Schoology, just go ahead and don't copy it word for word, but use this as a guideline for what your procedure would be, okay? Perfect. Results are going to be what you see, so you're going to draw a picture of the dissected heart and try to label the parts. And then your conclusion, I've actually added some questions even in the conclusion to make your conclusion a little bit better, okay? Perfect, let's get to the dissection. So first off, this is a sheep heart. I'm gonna bring it close. When you take a look at it, we have to look at it from, round in circles and this way and that way, and how the heck do we know what's the front and what's the back, right? And what's the top and what's the bottom? Holy moly, what the heck is this? I don't know. All right, so obviously we've learned what the apex is. Remember the apex was the point of the heart, and this has a very good point right here. What's your point, Miss Hanley? It has a point, okay? Yeah. So this is the point of the heart, the apex. Now the apex generally will point to the left side of your body. So you think about where the heart is placed inside the body. Now it's my left. I'm not sure how you're looking at this on your computer, but it's my left, the patient's left. So my left is this way. So if I take the apex and I point it this way towards my left, there should be a line that goes right down the front center. What? Check that out. It's right there. See the line? Now this is where one of the coronary arteries used to be placed, okay? So before, there were coronary arteries that surrounded the heart, that fed the heart with oxygenated blood, because it is a muscle, it needs lots of oxygen, and this is where one of the arteries ran down. It also locates the septum for us. So what we're looking at here is this big muscle, right? This big, huge muscle. The apex is pointing this way. If you think of this line right down the center as the septum, line right down the center as septum, we're going to have two really big chambers. We have those two ventricles, the right ventricle and the left ventricle. Now, this is my left. So this part here on this side is the left ventricle. This big, huge part, yes, it goes all the way up here. I'm going to show you the atria in a minute. This huge part is the ventricle, big left ventricle. Remember, that one has to be super hard, super big, because it has to pump the blood to the entire body. It's got to be a big, super strong muscle, and I'll show you how strong it is when we open it up. It's crazy. So the other part over here is the right ventricle. It is still pretty big, but it's not as big as the left ventricle. This one pumps the blood to the lungs through the pulmonary arteries. Pulmonary meaning lungs. Makes sense? Correct. All right, so we have our left and right. We know this is the front because we can see our septum right down the center here. All right, I want you to take a look at all this yellow stuff around it. The yellow stuff is fat. So whenever you eat chicken or whatever, any other type of food, when you cook it up, the yellow stuff is fat. Well, that's what this is too. We call it adipose though, if you remember. Adipose is the proper medical terminology for fat. Okay, so adipose surrounds this heart because it's protecting it basically, just like it did the kidney. It's protecting the heart. Now we have a rib cage. You're like, Miss Hanley, we have a rib cage. That protects the heart, right? Sure it does. But think about the rib cage. If you get hit in the rib cage, it's going to protect the heart a little bit, but it's still going to be that rib cage against the heart. Ow! You're going to bruise the heart pretty bad. So we want to make sure that this cushion is here, this extra adipose is here to create like a pillow against your heart if you get hit in the chest. Perfect, right? All right, I'm going to tip it this way so we can take a look at the top. Now there's a bunch of, remember we had the aorta, the pulmonary artery, pulmonary veins, superior vena cava, all come out of the top. It kind of looks jumbled right now, but I'm going to start pointing some things out to you. Here comes my pointer. Okay, so up here, this really big, whoa, check that out. This really big hole is the aorta. And yes, aorta is huge. In some people, it's almost as big as a garden hose. It's freaking huge. Okay, it's very rubbery as well. So if I touch it, I'm going to stick my finger in it in a second and I'll show you. So how do I know this is the aorta? I'm going to stick my finger and see where it goes, basically. So here we go. I'm going to show you. There goes my finger in the aorta. Ready for this? Push, push, push. Oh my God, it's all the way in. I can feel it. I can feel it all the way down in here. Okay, which was the left, right? The left ventricle. It's down in the left ventricle. My finger's way down in here. Where does the left ventricle lead? To the aorta. So that's how I know that's for sure the aorta. And I'm going to show you the hole now that I've stuck my finger in it. It's much larger. Here's the hole right here. Check that out. There's actually another hole with it. This little hole right here. Remember the aorta had like these three little trumpet things sticking on the top? This is one of the trumpet ones. Yeah, that's just another artery. It's just freaking huge. Big artery says, hello, I'm an artery. All right, I see another hole. There's another hole right here. Let's figure out where this one goes. This hole right here next to it, if I stick my finger in there, I'm going to guarantee this is the pulmonary artery and it goes to the right ventricle. Yes. Okay, so watch my finger go right in that right ventricle. What? I can feel it. My finger's right here inside the right ventricle. Right there, and the right ventricle leads to the pulmonary artery. So this one is the pulmonary artery, this really big one here. It's hard for me to do this, sorry. Pulmonary artery right here, right there. All right, so then you're like, where's the atria? The atria should be here somewhere, right? So the atria become deflated. They're not a muscle like the ventricles are. It's just a chamber. It's kind of like a flap. It's just it becomes round and inflated when there's blood in it. This doesn't have blood in it, so it's been deflated. If I turn the heart around, you see these two little brown things, this little flap right here? This is the atria. I know, it looks so weird. It doesn't look like it should be. And this is the other atria. What? So this is the left atria, and this is the right atria. Now I have it turned around. So if I turn around this way, this is the right atria, and this is the right atria, and this is the left atria. Now, leading into the right atria, we should have the superior vena cava. So my right atria is here. I'm going to try and find it. Oops, let's see. There it is. there's a hole right there, nice and big. That is the superior vena cava. It just doesn't have a thing sticking up out of it, but this is where it would attach, this hole right here. Holy macaroni. And on the other side, the hole that leads to the left atrium, which is huge, by the way, is the pulmonary vein. It's coming back from the lungs into the left atrium, where it brings newly oxygenated blood back into the body. All right, that's the heart from the outside. Let's cut in. Okay, so I'm going to move my computer down so the computer thing down so you can see my actually see my dissecting tray. All right, perfect. All right, so I'm going to make this a coronal cut. We've talked about coronal before. Coronal means I'm going to have, or it's also called frontal, which means I'm going to have a front and a back to this heart. So I'm going to put it on its side. I'm going to start up here by the atria, okay? And I'm going to put a nice slice in. Now this does not feel the same as the kidney did. The kidney felt like really dense, like I was cutting cheese. This feels like I'm cutting steak. But that makes sense because this is a big old muscle. So obviously it's going to feel kind of like steak. That makes sense, right? I'm going to come all the way around to the apex. I want to get a really good cut in the apex because that's where I'm going to cut all the way through. Remember, we're doing it in one direction, not like this because that makes it look like roast beef. Gross. And come all the way around. Here we go, here we go, here we go now. All right, all the way down here. Perfect, to the other atria. Back through some adipose there. All right, so now I'm going to sit it up like this, and I'm going to open it up kind of like a mouth. Yep. Hello, I'm your heart. Hello, I'm your heart. Okay. All right. I'm going to get my knife in there without trying to get my fingers and make sure I'm going one direction. I'm just going to do slices in one direction, not like this, just one direction. All right, here we go. And beautiful, beautiful, beautiful cut. Oh my goodness, you think I've done this before. Amazing. Wait till you see this. It's so cool. Looks like a mouth. Blah. You can definitely tell what is the left ventricle and what is the right ventricle. This is unbelievable, okay? I actually have it upside down. I'm going to turn it this way. This is my left side. This is the left ventricle. Look how much bigger this left ventricle is than the right ventricle. What? How is this so much smaller? See how this little chamber is just here? Little tiny chamber, really big chamber. And look how thick this muscle wall is here on this side. Remember, it has to pump to the entire body. It's got to be super thick and strong. This is a really strong muscle. This is our septum that we saw when we from the outside. So the septum is a really thick muscle down the center also. It's the same thickness as the outside of the left ventricle because they work together and squeeze that ventricle to push the blood through. Pretty awesome, okay? All right, I'm going to point out some really cool things too. And I'm just going to turn it around just so you can see. Remember, this is the left ventricle. It might not be your left, but I just have it upside down. So this is the left ventricle on this side. Take a look at these strings inside here. They look like guitar strings or almost. These are tendons and they're super strong. Like I can pull on these, pull on them really hard and nothing happens. Okay, these are tendons. They're called chordae tendini, and that is in your description that I gave you. So the chordae tendini attached to the valve. Here's the valve up here. The valve is kind of like this fibrous tissue. And if this is the left ventricle, this is the mitral valve, or also called the bicuspid valve. So the bicuspid valve itself has two cusps to it, remember? So this should have two pieces and two places where it pulls down. So what happens, I detached this one. Here's one and here's one. You can see that it's attached to the muscle wall down here in the ventricle. When this squeezes or contracts, it pulls down on the valve to open it. It's a really, really cool thing. Really cool concept. Let's see if I can see the one on the other side here. That one's okay. Let's turn it this way. This one's kind of hiding inside there. Not so good on this side. This is part of the valve right here. You can see those chordae tendini. So we have the left ventricle and the right ventricle. The atria are deflated, so we can't barely see them here. Not in this dissection. They're kind of flappy on the back here. I'm going to show you another one if I have to. But I'm gonna, again, stick my finger into the aorta and I want you to see where it goes, okay? So finger in the aorta. And it goes directly to the left ventricle. See that? Right to the left ventricle. This is the aorta, and this is the left ventricle. I just stuck it through the aorta into the left ventricle. Check that out. All right, let's do the pulmonary artery. And you'll see that that goes right to the right ventricle. I have to lift it up. And my finger's hiding in there, but you can see it. It's hiding in there. My finger's in there. Can't see it. See if I can get my purple finger to come through. There we go. There's my finger. That's the right ventricle, so that's the pulmonary artery. Make sense? Okay, awesome. And we can't really see the atria in this one. I have another dissected heart that I'm going to see if I can see the atria in. So pull that in here. Yes, perfect. So we open up this one. Check out the chordae tendini of this one. Really awesome. See the chordae tendini here? You can see it's attached to the valve right there. If you pull down on those, it opens the valve up. This is a really big left ventricle. Pretty amazing. And you can see that the atria is up here and the atria is here on the other side of the valve. So here's our valve, and just above it is the atria. That's our left atria, and our right atria is over here. Perfect. All right, I think we got all the parts. Let me shoot you back up again. You can see what I'm doing. Nice. All right, we did it. We dissected hearts. Can you believe it? So the parts you need to do, I'm going to check my paper too, but I'm going to go down through it with you. So you need to we needed to locate the aorta, the superior and inferior vena cava, and the pulmonary arteries on the outside. We had to determine how the left and right was based on that line that runs down the middle. That's the septum, basically. Remember, this was the left side, and the line down the center was the septum. Just right there. Perfect. So this is my left ventricle here, my right ventricle here. Beautiful. All right, that's the look. And once we cut into it, it was called a coronal cut or frontal cut. You can use that same terminology. We located the right atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle inside, the septum inside as well. We did all that. We also located the tricuspid and mitral valves and the chordae tendini. Super awesome. We also located or tried out how you actually stick your finger through the aorta, and it sees that it goes into the left ventricle, and then into the pulmonary artery, goes into the right ventricle. So we confirmed our assumptions and all that stuff. All right, once that's all done, your results, you're gonna draw something similar to this, write down the parts that we labeled, and upload that to Schoology, and your conclusion should be perfectly ready to go. Answer those questions on there. If you have any other questions about the dissection, see your teacher. It was great hanging out with you, and I wish you best of luck. I'm going to sign off. See you later.